morning or good evening. Crime doesn't sleep, so why should you? That's your host, Darren, who knows it all, and I'm your co-host, McKenna, who they pulled off the street. And welcome to the Sisters.n.law podcast. Today, we are here with Bill Hollenbeck. Bill, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a 42-year veteran of law enforcement. I started my career with the Dallas Police Department in Dallas, Texas. Then came back home after growing up here in Portsmouth, of course. I should have mentioned that, but moved back home and went to work for the sheriff's office, where I was there for 19 years before I ran for sheriff. Then I was your sheriff here in Sebastian County from 2010 till 2018. And then I retired as sheriff and became the chief of police for the Portsmouth Public Schools Police.
All right, so you grew up here in Arkansas.
I did, right here in Fort Smith. Went to school here as well.
What do you think your upbringing in Arkansas, how do you think that led you to be a police enforcement?
You know, my father was in the military, and I knew that I always kind of had this desire to serve. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into the military. While I was in college, I went to 2 years out here in Fort Smith, taking some criminal justice classes, and then I went to Fayetteville, went to school there, and I met a Dallas police recruiter who convinced me to apply for the Dallas Police Department. So, you know, it wasn't so much the place that I grew up. I think it was the family that I grew up in.
Very interesting. So, after working in, well, what transitioned you, I guess, into going from working for places like the Sheriff's Department and things like that to the Fort Smith Public Schools?
You know, I was with the Sheriff's Office for a long time. I started out as a patrol deputy, then went to investigations where I was a criminal investigator, work cases, you know, such as burglaries, robberies, rapes, and felony cases as that. Then I became the supervisor of Criminal Investigations Division. Then, of course, I ran for sheriff, and I did that for 8 years. That was a challenging job at best, and I think I was just ready for something different. So after 8 years, and I kind of told myself early on when I was decided to run for sheriff that I would serve 8 years. You know, 8 years is good enough for the President of the United States. It's good enough for me for sure. You know, I've seen people who have stayed in the office probably longer than they should have. So I think it was a good move. It was an opportunity that came to me at the right time, and jumped on it.
So you retired in 2018?
Yes.
And then you went for the Director of Security and Facilities?
That's correct.
Can you describe that role and exactly what you did?
So I did that for about a year and a half, I believe, before I became the chief of police. It was the school district had one safety security officer for the entire district, and I think during the millage in which the voters voted for improvements at the Portsmouth schools when it came to security enhancements of the buildings, also all the construction that took place with the new arenas and the new secure access points or entry points for the schools. It was a good challenge. Then the superintendent at the time, Doug Brubaker, thought that it would be a good idea to transition the school safety security unit to a full-time police department. The Governor's Safe School Commission, the first one that was commissioned I think in 2018, made a recommendation, and then it became law that public schools, just like colleges and universities, could have their own police department. So he asked me to develop a plan and a presentation to the State Standards Committee, which approves or disapproves schools developing police departments. So myself and Eric Huber, who was my partner at the time, we developed a presentation and then drove to Camden, where the Arkansas Law Enforcement Training Standards is, and so we did the presentation there, and we were one of the first police departments that were established for the public schools.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It was challenging, it was fun. I had a great partner at the time, who, by the way, now is the chief of police of Portsmouth Schools. But we did it together, and I think we've made a great difference. I think safety and security and the protection of students and staff have gone to a greater level than it's ever has. So for the Portsmouth Public Schools.
Well, I'm kind of going to skip around on a question just because you brought up Portsmouth Public Schools specifically. Since you have a laundry list of experience working in law enforcement and everything like that, and going back to more specifically your time for the Portsmouth Public Schools, what is your perspective on gun violence in schools, and what steps do you think could be taken in order to prevent more of it in the future?
You know, that's a hard question, and I think the answer has to be holistic. There's not one magic answer to gun violence in schools or throughout the entire nation, but I think it starts at home. I believe that parents need to educate their children on gun violence, the dangers, the repercussions that it actually has, how it affects the victim, and also even the suspect and the suspect's family and the victim's families and so forth. I think our younger generation has grown up on video games, and I believe that they have been desensitized. We play games, our children play games on how to kill people. I don't think that's healthy. I think there's ramifications from that itself. Also, I think gun ownership needs to be taken a little bit more responsible than what I've seen it in the past. I have seen here in the recent future where parents now are being also held responsible for things that their children are doing. You know, I believe in gun rights. I don't think taking guns away off the street is necessarily the answer, but at the same time, I think responsible gun owners have the responsibility for their family as well as the community that they live in to make sure that they lock up their guns. I'm not 100% keen on a 14-year-old owning an assault rifle when in fact he's not even mature enough to drive yet, right? However, I think again, gun ownership in our nation is part of our culture, is part of our history, but I think we can take specific steps that maybe could limit young gun owners until they're responsible, whether it's 18, 21, before we start putting these weapons in the hands of children, quite frankly. And it's been proven that a man's brain isn't fully developed till he's 26 years, 25. So, giving an assault rifle to a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, or having access to it is dangerous in itself. I think, the procedures that most of the schools are now starting to go to or a national standard. I was really fortunate to be on the Governor's Safe School Commission, and we came up with best practices for the state of Arkansas. That commission was put together right after the Uvalde shooting. So there are things that schools can do as well, which I'm glad to say that many schools, including Portsmouth Public Schools, are doing. Secure access points, visitor access points, controlled access, proper training and proper drills for students, staff, law enforcement as well. I think our law enforcement officers now are better equipped to respond to a violent encounter inside schools now more than ever. There's new technology in schools that can help quickly identify potential witnesses, potential weapons inside schools that can alert local law enforcement and school administrators to be able to respond quickly and effectively. So there are good things that we're doing, but again, it's a holistic approach. Everybody has to take ownership in it.
That was very well said, actually.
It was.
Thank you.
Okay, so wrapping back up onto the technology aspect, how do you think technology has changed law enforcement for better or for worse?
Maybe a little bit of both, but mostly for the better, I would say. Technology does require a certain amount of training and time away from police work a little bit. I think officers would rather be back on the street, but sometimes technology can assist that greatly. let's just say something as simple as mobile data terminals inside vehicles. Now officers can do a report, in the vehicle, stay on his or her beat longer rather than having to drive to the station to do a report. There's been advances when it comes to the video capabilities and capturing evidence off of video cameras as well as DNA. So there's been a tremendous amount of new technology that has assisted law enforcement in investigations. So it's been a good thing, but it takes a certain skill set to be able to operate some of these systems as well.
I agree. I've seen some of the systems that y'all use, and I could not do that much personally.
Well, you know what? You're probably better equipped to deal with some of those platforms than old horses like us. So the younger generation, I'm telling you, that's the key when it comes to technology.
I've seen some of the cybersecurity that they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
It is.
The amount of work that goes into the tiny littlest details.
Sure, absolutely. We give this to our kids, and this can be a good thing, and it also can be a bad thing. I have worked cases before in which this was used for many, many bad things. There was a beautiful young girl in Van Buren who was on a dating platform. I believe she was 14, and the person who she thought was 14 was actually an adult male who met her and later on murdered her. So again, technology is good. Technology can be bad.
It also opens up an entire new aspect of crime also.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, there's so many scams that are out there that
Yes.
that people have to be on the alert. Unfortunately, they tend to focus on our elderly who has given everything of themselves for us to be where we're at today. And then there's nefarious people that will try to scam them of their life savings and so forth. So, yeah, there's good stuff and bad stuff with it.
I agree. Speaking of that, since of course everybody is always on their phone now and always recording, what are like some differences you've noticed in community expectations when it comes to police now compared to when you first started?
I think you hit on something very important that it's not just affects law enforcement, but and not to get on your generation,
It's okay.
But
Get all
I mean,
over it.
this is what we do now. This is how we communicate. We've lost at times, not always, the art of communication, being able to have dialogue like this, right? And to know that it's okay to agree, and it's also okay to disagree. But when we don't have that practice growing up, communicating effectively, and we're on this, we just had a recent, example of somebody who wouldn't engage in conversation and took somebody's life because he disagreed with what his platform actually was. That was Charlie Kirk. Whether you agreed with him or disagreed with him, he had the courage to communicate with people. And so, it makes it difficult for law enforcement to intercept things like that when it's all starts from a platform like this and it's secretive and unfortunately we find out after the fact. And then sometimes even having law enforcement in what we would consider starting out as a normal encounter. We've seen video after video after video of a what we would consider a traffic stop turn violent because the person who is driving the vehicle, for instance, just can't communicate effectively and refuses to engage in conversation and so forth. So, we have to get better. Our country right now, quite frankly, is I think at a turning point.
I hope so.
We've got to get better, or it's going to get worse.
Yes. Okay, so what was the most difficult or impactful case that you've ever dealt with?
When I was with Dallas PD, we had 8 police officers that were killed in the line of duty in 1 year. While I was there was think 24 officers that were killed the entire time I was there, and I knew several of them personally, and those were difficult. They really, really were. Dealing with, joking with somebody in the locker room before we're getting ready to hit the streets, and then hours later, they're not with us anymore, and those were difficult. But I would say the biggest challenging case I've ever been involved in is probably the shooting of Deputy Bill Cooper. Bill was just a dynamic individual. Everybody loved him, a great guy. But looking at it from the level of being the law enforcement administrator, executive over the department, trying to be the big brother for all the officers who were in extreme pain, were down, were hurting, and then also trying to be that person out front for the community who was hurting as well. It took a toll. It was it was almost like a 24/7 job for about 3-4 months of trying to comfort other people at times when I wasn't comforting myself, and so that took a major toll. That was very challenging. So kind of took the wind out of my sails after that, for sure, because a lot of great people who loved Bill, and they were hurting. Just like I was.
Considering as an officer, you definitely have to deal with a lot of loss, whether that is of a comrade or even a victim that you've dealt with. What advice could you give to future officers having to deal with and go through that in the future?
It's here. I read something where most people growing up will deal with about 4 or 5 critical incidents throughout their lives, where law enforcement officers throughout their career will deal with 300 to 500 critical incidents throughout their life, and that takes a toll. There's stress is real. It's a real entity that will chew away your lifeblood. Post-traumatic stress is also real in law enforcement. They're seeing critical incidents every single day. I think we have to recognize that. I think law enforcement leaders have to be better at recognizing officers who need help. I think we have to acknowledge that when I first started in law enforcement, literally, part of our training when it came to dealing with stresses of the job was suck it up, big boy. Don't talk about it at home. Don't talk about it to anybody. And if you need help, something's wrong with you. And so it was really frowned upon. So we have to have a paradigm shift. And I've seen some departments starting to change. One department that I'm very impressed with right now is Fayetteville Police Department. My own son was just recently hired with the Fayetteville Police Department, and their chief is awesome. And when he was going through this swearing-in ceremony, the chief made it a point to talk about mental health with law enforcement and what they go through, and how important it is that officers have relationships outside of law enforcement. So when you're good buddies as a student, when you get together, what do? You talk about school, right? Mm-hmm. When cops get together, what do? They talk about their job. That's exactly right. So it's important to have those relationships, of course, to have friends, but have friends outside law enforcement, to see the real world, other people, other issues, other things to talk about. And then also it's so important in my opinion, to be a person of faith. I truly believe that has helped me through many critical incidents that I've been involved in. It's kind of like going to church, going to mass. It's like a booster shot of humanity that I get once a week. That would help me carry through the rest of the week and so forth. So I think friends outside of law enforcement is important. Learning to understand what hypervigilance is. So cops, when they're working, they're hypervigilant. They're cruising in the patrol car. They have this little box in front of them telling them where to go and what to do. At the same time, they're looking for crime. They're looking for violations, And even when they're eating, they're hypervigilant for any nefarious individual coming into the restaurant. So when they come home, what are they? They're hypervigilant, right? And so they're just always on guard. And, a book that I once read, I believe it was by Jack Enter, talked about how to get out of hypervigilance at home. Because what happens with cops, they get home, sit on the recliner, grab that channel changer, and then their brain goes to neutral, where they don't have to be hypervigilant. Then their son or their daughter comes up and says, hey, let's go outside and play catch. Yeah, okay, just in a little while. Hang on, let me sit here. And so they go through this mode of just decompressing by just not engaging. And the secret to fighting that is to get the hell off the couch and go play catch. Engage with your children, engage with your family, be present, go to church, have outside activities, hunt, fish, go camping, go golf, find hobbies, rather than work, come home, work, come home. That's dangerous in any profession.
It is. It's the fastest way to get burnt out.
You got that right.
Okay, so let's start speaking on a little happier note. We don't want to scare everybody away. What accomplishment in your career are you most proud of?
Oh, goodness gracious. There have been numerous cases that I've worked where I've had a victim, a good person from a good family who was just a victim of a crime. And to be able to apprehend the offender through investigative work, identifying who it is, that's always been probably one of my fondest moments, I guess, of being able to bring somebody who has done something horrible to somebody else to justice, and to make sure that they don't do it to somebody else. But overall impact, I think, when I became sheriff, I realized quickly how mental health affects our community, and that our jail and prison population are loaded with people with mental health issues. I mean, I saw that, every single day, when I was walking through the jail. And so I quickly come to realize that, man, if some of these people, a third of these people, are going through some sort of mental health crisis when they're arrested, how is being incarcerated going to help them? We have people who traditionally, through no fault of their own, can't afford their medication or get off their medication because they think they're feeling good. Then they go to Walmart and they're having hallucinations. They call law enforcement to remove the person, and then the person who's afraid of law enforcement at the time because he is off his medication starts to jerk away or resist violently, and now there's a fight with law enforcement, and then that person, because of a mental health, now has a felony charge. So I think early on I recognized there has to be an alternative. So working with the Arkansas Sheriff's Association, we went to other communities. We went to Houston and we went to San Antonio, Washington, D.C. to find out what are other agencies and other criminal justice systems doing. And so we developed a place called a stabilization unit that officers now who are specifically trained to recognize if somebody is in mental health crisis now has that option of deferring that individual rather than committing or taking him to jail for a crime. Now he can transport him or her to the stabilization unit to get the person stabilized again, back on their medication, back to work, back paying taxes, rather than sitting in jail while you and I as a taxpayer are paying for their medical and their food and their housing, and then they're sent to prison, and that cycle starts all over, and then through recidivism, that cycle starts again. So
revolving door.
It is. So I think the greatest accomplishment was working with then Governor Asa Hutchinson, who started gave us a great startup fund of $1 million to start a stabilization unit right here in Sebastian County with Western Arkansas Guidance and Counsel. And so we have diverted hundreds, if not thousands, of people from jail and got them back on their medications rather than filling up the jail. Because I needed room for serious bad guys, right?
They're not criminals.
There you go. Exactly. you're on the right thought process right there.
You're just
So I'm very proud of that.
Yay! Sorry, I'm helping you. So with that, like after retirement, what is something you miss the most about law enforcement?
I think I miss the camaraderie with the officers. I miss the challenge of the investigations. I also, I was in SWAT for many years. I started with the Dallas SWAT team, full-time SWAT, where I was very fortunate to work with amazing people and got a lot of great experience. And I was able to bring that experience back here to Fort Smith and started the first SWAT team for Sebastian County Sheriff's Office and carried that on. So, going after bad guys, slowing down a critical incident and effecting an arrest where nobody's hurt through tactics and training and equipment. I miss that as well. But my old body says, no, a little too old for that. So, so I think those are the things that I really miss.
All right, so to finish this off here, what advice would you give to students like me who are considering a career in the criminal justice or law enforcement?
I can tell you about my career. If I had to do this all over again, I would not change a thing. Every single day was exciting. Every single day was a challenge. Every single day was fun. You get to work with heroes in law enforcement. People who put a badge on their chest while you and I are sleeping at night are out there standing watch, protecting our families and protecting our community and protecting our nation while we sleep at night. They're the ones that are running towards the danger when everybody else is running away. So I think it's a very fulfilling career. I know judges, I know lawyers, I know stenographers, and most of them probably would say the same thing. It's our staple of society. Law enforcement and the criminal justice system is just, we're an extension of the community. That's what we are. And any good community needs to have a good criminal justice system. So I would highly recommend it.
All right, well, that concludes episode 1. Bill, would you like to tell them about your podcast?
Sure, absolutely. We started a podcast in partnership here with the University of Arkansas Fort Smith here in the Sound Collection Lab. We have a podcast. It's called Bill Hollenbeck's Behind the Badge. I think we've got 4 or 5 episodes right now that we've filmed. So we're trying to edit it right now, so we're going to need some help from people who know how to edit. Maybe we can get you some extra credit and help us out a little bit, but we'll be dropping those podcasts probably after the first of the year. We'll drop one about once a week. So we've been blessed to be able to come here. This is a great studio, a great opportunity. I understand they've received a grant for some really great equipment that we're using right now, which is open to students and I think to a certain point the public potentially. So it's a great thing that the University of Arkansas Fort Smith is doing. So I really appreciate all the help that they have given me. But it's a podcast. It's about stories of law enforcement and stories of unsolved mysteries, and also about local impact stories here that affect us here locally and also on the statewide level.
I actually got to sit in on a couple and they were very, very good. So I would check it out.
Yes.
Right.
Alrighty, well, join us next week when we interview some random person that my dad knows, and we will see y'all then.